Good evening. Good evening, kings and queens of the land. Good evening to all the liberated zones in Africa. Good evening to Burkina Faso, which is led by the Lion of the Sahel, President Ibrahim Traore. Good evening to Mali, which is led by um, the beast, the Sahel beast, who is President um, Assimi Goita. Good evening to Niger, which is led by Colonel Abdurrahman Dian. These are liberated zone from the French colonies. In Africa, we only have um, 3 countries out of 55 countries, which is already liberated. Good evening to KZN, partially liberated by the MK party, by the relentless efforts of President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma. Good evening to the royals. My name is Mnguni Mkhonto. This is the Royal Opinion. Today we are talking about the big moves that Africa has made recently. Very shocking. The move I specifically want to talk about the move that Nigeria becomes the first country in Africa to actually implement the much talk about de-dollarization. This is a big, massive, because it means a collapse of an empire, the collapse of the empire. So I want to talk about that. But before I get deep into talking about those issues, few things maybe to share. President Goita in Mali has banned French language in the schools. The media of instruction will be local languages. Uh, and they've also banned French history in schools in Mali to be able to decolonize their education. Then this is what happens in Mali, and they've also from January next year, they won't be learning all of those things. Those are some of the things that I just wanted to just announce what the beasts are doing in the Sahel. Let me start my presentation today because I think it's going to be a little bit detailed. I don't know if it's going to be longer, but it's going to be a very detailed kind of presentation. So, what I want to start with, let me start first by sharing this, and then I'll explain why I shared this.
and I made this point yesterday to my friend. I also made it to our people who were here that there is a big problem wherein we demonstrate that we are in fact not realizing what is happening in this province, in this continent. If you take the situation where this country says we want that belongs to us to come to us and let us run our own affairs, and you have leaders saying this is a coup d'etat, why are you doing this? And then if we are going to isolate you, that tells you the problems we still have here. Because we as Africans were in our own, and some people.
Okay, first, what kind of leaders is he talking about? What kind of leaders is he talking about when he says we still have problems? These are the issues that makes us to have problems in Africa. What kind of leaders is he talking about? The leaders who say
the EFF condemned the military takeover of political power in different parts of African continent. Political power must exclusively be established through free, fair, transparent, and democratic elections, and not through the barrel of a gun. We call on all regional bodies and the African Union to always decisively suppress military takeover of political power in each and every country. The military takeover of Burkina Faso must be suppressed, and the Mali must be forced to transit towards civilian political power as a matter of agency.
these are the people that he's talking about. The people who are bought by the white people to come and tell us that when there's a takeover, when Africans take over, that the country should be suppressed. Let me continue to share a little
People
bit.
came, started wars, taking our country, doing everything. It has been centuries. I don't think as Africans we have to sit and say we don't know one day either the angel or God or Jesus himself will come and help us. They will never. It is us who must say enough is enough. We want to run our affairs in every direction. That which has been done here should have been a light that says this is the way to go. But what do you find? You find not just ordinary people, leaders who are running their countries, saying this is a coup d'etat. Please let us isolate this young man. That tells you the problem we still have. And I am very keen to say, what can we do, all of us, who think alike, to change the minds of our people? It is absolutely crucial. One of the things that made me happy here is to find Africans from all over being here. Well, that gives the support to what the leadership here is doing. And I think we need to increase that. We need to help.
I wanted to first share that part where President Zuma is talking about the problem that we have and show the actual leaders that are actually doing that. People who are leading political parties, people who are leading countries saying we need to isolate Ibrahim Traore. So now I want to move to share this part
countries who use the CFA franc should break free from it. What's your viewpoint about it?
No, firstly, I'm very happy that our brothers and sisters coming from outside have also taken a step to participate in helping this continent. I'm very happy. I was very happy to see our brothers and sisters here who are very serious about how do we need to change the world. Because if we don't do so, we will remain almost like I'm not. I don't want to say only like okay. Let me not say it.
Okay.
What is important is that we as Africans, we must stand for ourselves, not remain to other people. The colonizers came here and left few of their people, but it took everything. They are still taking it away up to today, whatever we have. And we cannot allow that. And therefore, the issue of how the monies are used, because wherever you are, what you come across is that we don't have the money. The money is owned by those people, always. And others are big.
So the CFA franc, it's actually a currency that was developed by France in all its 14 colonies in Africa. That was imposed. So meaning their money is actually printed in France, and all of their money is actually residing in the French Reserve Bank. So whenever they want to spend, then they have to request for money from the French. So the CFA franc is a currency from there. Let me continue to share. Before I get deeper into
Like the
it,
United States of America, for an example. The dollar is what dominates the world.
Okay.
We can have our own. We don't need the dollar. When I joined a group of 5, in fact, precisely because I don't like this business that we are ruled from somewhere. We are just useless. We can't even exchange our money. At times, if we've got our own money, it's just a paper, which means nothing. It is absolutely important that we, as African people, together with the brothers and sisters, we should come together more and have our own. I proposed in that meeting that we should not follow the dollar.
Okay.
Our own organization must create its own money.
Okay.
Because being 5, we were good as part of the rest. And why? And we
that way should de-dollarize. What President Zuma is talking about in this video, Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma is the one who suggested the economic alliance. BRICS was just a club of countries which were said to its economies to grow bigger than the US economy in 2063. President Zuma, when he took over government, he did not look to the West, he focused on the East. He went to the countries on the east, the countries who were aligned to the liberation movement. And what he did, he proposed to them. By then they were BRIC, meaning it was Brazil, Russia, um, China, what is it? I mean, we all know all the countries of BRICS, the BRIC countries. It's B represent Brazil, R represent Russia, I represent India, and then C represent China, and then South Africa. So BRICS. That's what President Zuma proposed, the economic alliance of the countries which are set to develop themselves to grow bigger than the US economy in the future. President Zuma said to them, we can actually start the de-dollarization project. We can move out of the dollar. Why is it so important? What is the reason President Zuma wants to move away from the dollar? Let me explain something about the petrodollar system. There's something called the petrodollar system. The petrodollar system is the basically the sales of oil across the world or across the planet is linked to the dollar. You countries which are selling oil, they can only sell their oil in dollars. And this happened because of the wars that happened in the past. So countries can only sell their oil in dollars. The countries, they've got into agreement with the US that they can only sell their oil in dollars. So what happened when they sell their oil in dollars? They also automatically they buy government bonds. Buying government bonds is basically an investment, a safe investment. It means you borrow the government money for the government to actually implement projects that government wants to implement. So what the US have done is to ensure that all the countries which are selling oil, they have invaded all the countries which are selling oil and impose the petrodollar system, meaning you sell your oil in dollars. So it means they created the demand for the dollar because the people who are not oil producing countries, who are not selling the oil, who wants to buy the oil, have to also buy the dollar. They have to need the dollar now to be able to buy the oil, because, well, the economy is the oil at the end of the day, the transportation, the electricity, the generators, all of the things that mostly runs the economy requires the oil that is controlled by the petrodollar system. So every time all the economies in the world, the reason why the US economy is not okay, then all the economies in the world get sick, it's because all the economies in the world are linked to the US economy through the petrodollar system. Because you have to buy your oil in dollars and so what happened? You buy the dollar, you go purchase the oil in dollars. If maybe you are purchasing the oil in Nigeria, then Nigeria also cannot use that money. In actual fact, they are bound to invest that money into US bonds. So will only get the interest of that. US is flooded with loans from in the petrodollar system, because if you when you sell the oil, you have to put the money, you have to invest the money in the US bonds. So it becomes a loan for the US government. So they don't have to go to the IMF. They always have the money. They always have the money to run their government. So the US dollar becomes very powerful in the world because it's in demand. So and because the US dollar becomes in demand, the US is able to print more and be able to beat inflation. What are we talking about when we talk about inflation? When we talk about inflation, we're talking about when a particular goods is oversupplied in the market. It's inflated, meaning there's more of that. Let's say it's an Apple computer, everybody is selling the Apple computer. Obviously, the value of the Apple computer will have to drop. That is called inflation. So when they print more money, when they print more dollars, they are able to beat inflation, even though they are just printing the paper and using the paper to buy assets. They are able to build inflation because of the demand that they have created of the dollar. Because there's more demand of the dollar, in order for you to beat inflation, you need to lift the demand, meaning the people who want it must be more than the people who are supplying it. If there's more people who are supplying it and there's less people who want it, then the product is inflated in the market. So the US dollar gets printed in it's a paper money. What happened? Money was a promissory letter in the past. Money was just the paper money was a promissory letter to say, if I got 10 rand in the note, then I've got 10 coins of gold in the bank that you can actually give that note and they will give you the gold. It was that so that people don't walk around with gold. So it was the paper money was created as a promissory letter that I've got certain amount of gold that you can access at the produce of this promissory letter, which is paper money. So in 1971, the US President Nixon decided that the US dollar cannot no longer be linked to the gold, because before the promissory letter had to have a backing. If I say I promise you, you will have 10 coins of gold, it means in the bank I will have those 10 coins of gold. But this time around, they're just printing the paper There's no money behind it. There's no gold behind it. In 1971, they cut the link between the gold and the paper money, meaning there's no backing behind the paper money. So the reason why the paper is still able to buy is because there's a demand for the paper. And the demand is created by the petrodollar system, because all the countries in the world have to trade in dollars, have to trade oil in dollars. And all the countries, for their economies to grow, they need oil, they need petrol. So if you are trading in, if all the countries are trading in dollars, then it means all the countries are contributing into the US uh, economy. All the countries in the world are forced to contribute into the US economy. This is the reason why the US has been able to fund wars, because all the countries are contributing into funding them to be able to fund the wars, to be able to build the bombs, so that whenever you are resisting, they can be able to eliminate you. It's because of the petrodollar power, the petrodollar system. Something massively happened recently, I think a week ago, in Nigeria. The parliament of Nigeria said people would remember that previously the USA threatens to invade Nigeria because they said Nigeria, they wanted to save the Christians in Nigeria who were attacked by Boko Haram. But we all know, I don't know why African leaders are not talking. We all know that Boko Haram is funded by the same people who say they want to go and rescue the Christians against Boko Haram. The same people are the ones, they actually, Elon Musk said it, that US aid is funding all of these people who are going around terrorizing nations, including the ones who are terrorizing people in Burkina Faso. So now they are threatening to come to Nigeria for the sake of Christians. They threatened to go to Nigeria for the sake of Christians. But in actual fact, there was this legislation which was coming, and they knew through their intelligence that it's like President Tinubu, who is their agent, or who was their agent, or is their agent. It's actually their active agent. It's going to make a decision that will be against their interest. So that's why they decided to threaten the invasion to come and save the Christians in Nigeria. And Nigeria went on to make a decision about Alika Dangote, who is the richest man in Africa, the businessman who struggled to sell his products around his own continent, who is from Nigeria, a genuine businessman. Nigeria couldn't sell its oil. They wouldn't allow him to buy the oil. They wanted him to buy the oil from American companies, which were shipping it refined, partially refined, to to Nigeria and more expensive for him, so that they are always gaining, they are always making money. So Nigeria now have made the decision to allow people to buy oil. Nigeria is an oil producing country. To allow people to buy oil using other currencies other than the dollar. That is massive. It's huge. The first country in Africa to allow for transactions to happen outside the dollars. Donald Trump was very angry. He openly threatened Nigerian parliament, that is going to come and demolish them because of that decision, because he knows how important it is for America to keep that petrodollar system, because what they do there, the criminality, what they do, the paper that they are printing has got no foundation, has got no basis, it has got no backing of the actual money. It's just a paper. So with this paper, they are able to print and distribute it to all the world economies. And when they distribute, and in actual fact, the reason why countries want to move away from the petrodollar system is one of the biggest reasons is because the US at any time they can use that system to sanction you, to put you into sanction. And when they put you into sanction, all the money that you invested into their system, you forfeit. You no more get your interest share from them. And they make it difficult for you to get the dollar to be able to buy the oil, because you need the dollar to be able to buy the oil in other countries. Or you need to deposit your money. If you are the oil producing country, you need to deposit your money into those bonds, but those bonds can be forfeited. So that's why it was reasonable when President Zuma proposed to the BRICS members in France that the system should be changed. It was reasonable for them to accept the proposal that President Zuma came with to start the de-dollarization project. So this is massive, the move that Nigeria has made to start the de-dollarization project in Africa. Remember, in Burkina Faso, the Sahel states, Nigeria is the biggest country in Africa in terms of population. They've got more than 200 million people who are living in Nigeria, meaning their economy is massive. So when they start to transact outside the dollar, then America is going to lose a lot. The Sahel as well, with a population of around 100 million, they are already starting their own currency in which they are not going to be transacting in dollars among themselves when they are buying things among themselves. So the need for the dollar is going to be less and less. And this has been the strength of the American economy, the petrodollar system, linking the purchase of oil from all countries to the dollar. That linkage made the American rich. I would say rich, but at the same time, America is one of the heavily indebted countries because they force countries to borrow the money. Those bonds that the countries are buying in the US bonds are monies that comes from other countries. Those are loans. So US is one of the highly owing countries. They owe almost all the countries in the world. All the countries in the world are contributing into creating the US debt, which is escalating. So when the demand for the dollar becomes less, then it means the printing of the dollar, if they continue to print the dollar will be inflated in the market. And when the dollar becomes inflated in the market, then the dollar is automatically going to collapse because there would be an oversupply of the paper money which has got no backing. So it's not gonna be the same for the US. This means they have to launch the war. That's why they were launching a war in. They want to launch a war with Venezuela because Venezuela is an oil producing country which is refusing the petrodollar system. They want to trade in their own currency with other countries. So the US goes out to invade all the countries which are selling oil so that they have to use the petrodollar system. Gaddafi was removed because he was one of the people who was refusing the petrodollar system. He was removed for suggesting that Africa should have the same currency. President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma today appeared in court for crime which they smear on him. They say 25 years ago, he stole 25 years ago, he was involved in corruption. For the past 25 years, they've been struggling to prove this point. But because of his role to suggest the de-dollarization project, that was the reason why he was removed before he could even finish his term. Because this means a lot of money for the US. It's a big deal. It means the robbing game is over. You have to earn costs, meaning the US, the most their gross domestic product is the dollar. Meaning what they produce to sell to the world is the dollar. They don't produce goods as such. They produce less goods and more of the dollar. And that's how they survive. They survive on that fake, on that balloon. So the system has to change. President Zuma was one of the people who earlier in 2009 went around to influence people to start de-dollarization. Today, big move has been made, and the Sahel states are going to follow. President Zuma has already said that South Africa will join immediately when the MK party wins, is going to be part of this.
Started that. Although it was not necessarily started in the continent, but the ones that think alike, who are not oppressing us. Already, the oppressors have been put under pressure because we are now acting in a particular way. So we need to have our own African money, not of other people. Because I think we've got the strength to do so. So I know all these countries, whether the British or whatever, but we need, it needs us to come together to say, this is us now, we are here, let us do our own things. Sisters from abroad is one of the strong things that is going to happen to quicken the process, taking into account that they have been there, they've been there. I'm sure we are going to succeed, including not depending on the money paper which comes from other places. These are some of the things we are going to be discussing here. How do we do it? How do we make it work? And I'm sure many Africans will realize this is the way to go.
Okay, Mr. President, what's your message to the people of Burkina Faso?
So this is the reason why they want to arrest President Zuma. President Zuma is putting boots on the ground to the implementation of one Africa, which the white people want to control closely so that they don't lose their access to the most important resources which comes from this continent, which is our mineral resources and our land, our climate, our weather, everything about us, our rivers, our oceans. It's under their control so that they don't lose this. Politicians are what Fela Kuti would call vagabonds in power. VIPs. Vagabonds in power. When we talk about vagabonds, we talk about the Nyaupe people. If you've got somebody who is under the influence of drugs and is actually stupid, you give them money and power. Those are vagabonds. Those are politicians. President Zuma, politics out of leadership. He wants to take the land away from the politics and the economy away from the politics. Because politics was created by the colonizer, putting people who are going to manage us, colonial administrations, people who are going to manage us on their behalf, for their sake. So they want to arrest President Zuma because of this reason. They want to invade Nigeria for the same reason. They want to attack Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger for the same reason. They are using fake leaders like this one.
Political power in different parts of African continent. Political power must exclusively be established through free, fair, transparent, and democratic elections, and not through the barrel of a gun. We call on all regional bodies and the African Union to always decisively suppress military takeover of political power in each and every country. Military takeover of Burkina Faso must be suppressed, and the Mali must be forced to transition towards civilian political power as a matter of agency. We are aware that some of these military takeovers are instigated and funded by the colonial forces, particularly France, which continues to micromanage the politics and economies of the countries it colonized. All progressive forces must reject France's interference in the African continent. The EFF in South Africa will therefore, before the end of May 2022, convene International Continental Summit of all EFF-aligned structures all over the continent to talk about progressive socialist agenda for the world ahead, and giving each other practical support towards the establishment of the EFF all over the continent.
So the plan was to establish the EFF all over the continent so that the Julius Malema can unite black people under the control of the same colonial masters. Then Ibrahim Traore came in and took over Burkina Faso. Mali happened, and Niger is also history. South Africa, President Zuma happened, and it's also a matter of history. The white people knows that Africa, but they at least need to have control over the unity project. If Africa is united under Ibrahim Traore and President Zuma, or under forces which they don't have control over, then they already have collapsed. France have already collapsed. Their economy have already collapsed because of just minusing 3 states. Out of the 15 states that they are colonizing, it's only 3 which has liberated themselves, but France is already collapsing. What about if 10 of the states liberate themselves? What about if the whole Africa liberates itself from Europe? So they, at the moment, they can print the dollar for free, and they can fund the wars across the world. They've got allowance to print trillions and trillions and give to terrorists to go around and terrorizing people and go around buying politicians and leaders, going around conducting coups, some conducting constitutional coups, ensuring that their puppets are actually in the leadership. But Africa at the end is going to win. My name is Mugonum Konto. This is the Royal Opinion. Click the like button and subscribe. Thank you for joining the live stream. Please share, find it interesting. Thank you very much.